Good morning, guys, or good afternoon, whether you're joining me from the present or the future. Welcome back to another FutureFight Vanguard video. Today, we are going to be talking about the second half of the mini booster, the V-Series mini booster. Like, what a pain in the butt this deck was. Like, let me tell you guys, to make this deck even, like, look decently, like, good, it was, like, a really big pain in the butt. But I still think that it's not that great. But, you know, I did want to not skip over it and make a video for you guys who really like Kagero. So I am covering the Nouvelle deck today from the mini booster. Couple things before that. This channel I've mentioned in previous videos will be on a Monday, Wednesday, Friday schedule. So you guys can check back with the channel Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays for new content. As well, there's going to be different series starting up soon and stuff like that. Like, I'm back on the grind with both of my channels at the same time, just pumping out content. So you guys can look forward to that as well. And I think that's it. If you guys haven't already, be sure to subscribe and click the bell button to stay updated with the Cardfight Empire content. And you guys can check out all of our social media links, merch store, and Patreon down below if you guys want to support the channel extra in any way that you feel necessary. But a quick shout out to our sponsor up here, Dabbers Cards and Game. They're a local card shop in Georgia. They have lots and lots of Japanese product, which is pretty cool. You can't really find that in America often unless someone's like importing it. But they have a lot of Japanese sleeves, like, you know, deck boxes, plushies, like Pokemon plushies, Master Ball, Pokeball plush, all this kind of stuff. They have video games there. Not video games that you can buy, don't be confused, but video games, like, you know, video games that you can play. They have like Dragon Ball Fighters tournaments. They have Super Smash Brothers tournaments, and they have, like, you know, an all around cool scene and great workers or employees that work there that are kind of working towards the benefit of the whole card game community. So definitely check them out if you live in Atlanta or if you're visiting Atlanta, as they have a lot of good Cardfight stock around the time of set releases, and they are a great store to support. But with that being said, let's get right into the video. So today, like I said, we're going to be talking about the Nouvelle deck. This deck low-key, like, made me mad because and that's why this video is like later than normal. Normally I would upload this at like 10 a.m. on the day that I'm uploading, but I had to record more games to try to make this deck look decent, because like all the games I was just like straight losing, and I could not find a build that like worked out for me. But I ended up settling on this build as being the best one of all the bad builds, pretty much. But let's get right into it. So we have our grade 4 that came out in the mini booster. It is a Transcendence Dragon Dragonic Nouvelle Vague. So Nouvelle Vague, if you guys played the old card game, was like a really broken card in the past. But if you're an old player, you have not looked at the new stuff yet, do not be fooled. This card is not as good as advertised, pretty much. But the skill is, during the main phase, once per turn, when it's on the Vanguard circle, you can Soul Blast a grade 3 or greater card. And then you, until the end of your turn, all your opponent's trigger units are nullified, and this unit gets plus 20,000 power and -1 drive. If you or your opponent has 5 or more cards in the, or sorry, 5 or more means that you lost, but, or more means that you lost. But if you or your opponent has 5 cards in the damage zone, retire all of your opponent's rear guard. So what this means, what I think that they should have did with this card is I think they should not have given the drive a -1 drive. That was really sucky of them to do, because now on turns where you Nouvelle Vague, like, you use the effect, you drive check 1, and that's usually not enough to keep up with your opponent. Even if you blow up your opponent's whole board, like, most of the time they're fine if they have a PG. So basically, you know, all of your opponent's trigger units are nullified. That's cool. Your opponent can't 6 damage heal. If they're at less than 5 damage, then they can't like get draw triggers or heal triggers or crits or anything to help them be defensive and kind of like nullify. So if you have like, if they have like 4 cards in their hand, you know that the cards are bad, your columns are big, and they're at 4 damage, like, you might as well just go ahead and use Nouvelle Vague, even if both of you are not at 5 damage. I usually use it when one of us are at 5 damage so that I can also get the additional skill of blowing up their board, because that's the only way that it's like worth it to me. But this card does reward you by saying, like, if you or your opponent has 5 cards in the damage zone, so you can actually like rush your opponent and be way ahead of your opponent, and your opponent just happens to have 5 damage, and then you're basically pushing them into the dirt with Nouvelle Vague's skill, even if you're not at 5 damage. So it's a worse card than I think I would have imagined from, you know, Nouvelle Vague, just from how strong it used to be in the old card game, but all in all, still like an alright card. So then in this build, we run 3 Dragonic Waterfall. So the reason for this is because when we're not using Nouvelle Vague, we really just want to be playing regular Kagero, and regular Kagero V-Series to me is Dragonic Waterfall. We only run 1 Overlord. I would run less Overlords, and I would run 4 Waterfall, but I want the consistency of being able to have my ride go properly. So with Novellerman Dragon, like, you know, I need to run at least 1 Overlord to make that happen if I don't have a grade 3. But you guys all know what Waterfall does, but I'll go over it shortly. When this unit is placed, choose one of your opponent's grade 2 or greater rear guards, retire it, so you get a free pop 1 when this card appears on the rear guard circle or on the Vanguard circle. And then its Vanguard, its other Vanguard skill is when it attacks, you can Soul Blast the grade 3, meaning that this card works best when it is your second ride or more. Your second grade 3 ride or more, I should say. But when it attacks, you Soul Blast 1 grade 3 until the end of the battle. This unit gets plus 10,000 power and a critical, and your opponent cannot call Sentinels from hand to guard circle. So this can get really, really big and really hard for your opponent to guard, along with force markers being on your Vanguard circle. So, you know, just kind of play around that, and if your opponent is playing something like OTT or something like Protect with a lot of Protect markers in their hand, or like New Angel Feather or something like that, like Dragonic Waterfall will really help you win those matchups over Nouvelle. But then if, you know, let's say that you ride Dragonic Overlord, they PG it because they always seem to PG or not let Dragonic Overlord hit. But if they don't let this hit and then you Waterfall the next turn, they no guard it because they can't guard Waterfall. Or they guard it for like a 1 to pass or something, and you just pass their check with a trigger. Then let's say they're at 5 damage after that, then you can just feel free to go into Nouvelle Vague after that to try to, like, you know, push your advantage into a win. Next, we have 1 Dragonic Overlord, like I was stating before. It has 2 skills. The first one is an activation skill during the main phase when it's on the Vanguard or rearguard circle. Once per turn, you can Soul Blast 1, and this unit gets plus 10,000 power. So, like I said, we ride it when we don't get a grade 3. If we have a Nouvelle in our hand and a Novellerman, we can like switch out the Nouvelle with the Dragonic Overlord, ensuring that we're able to ride to grade 3. But however, if we don't ride it initially, we usually don't ride it later after Waterfall. Like, we usually just ride Waterfall or Nouvelle Vague after that. So if we get it, we probably just play it as a rearguard after that. The second ability is when this unit's attack hits when it's on the Vanguard circle. You can counterblast 1, discard 2 cards from your hand, stand this unit, and it gets -1 drive until the end of the turn. So basically what happens is this card is really, like, I think Overlord is at its best when you go first, because you're able to ride into Overlord while your opponent's still grade 2. If you Soul Blast to make Overlord plus 10k, you put the Force gift to your Vanguard circle, then Overlord is 33 by itself, which most likely, like, against a 10k or a 9k Vanguard, your opponent's not going to guard that unless they're PGing. And so then if you check a crit or a draw trigger, like, it becomes really, really worth for you to have done Overlord skill. Sometimes you can even force them into a loss, like, straight up, when your opponent's at 2 damage and you ride this card, and then you attack, you get a crit, you restand, and your opponent can't block it, and they just die. Moving on to our grade 2s. Of course, we have 4 Berserk Dragon, probably best grade 2 Kagero currently has, and has had. Its skill is Vanguard Rearguard Circle. When placed, counterblast 1, Soul Blast 1, and choose one of your opponent's rearguards and retire it. And then if this unit was on the Vanguard Circle when you use that skill, you can draw a card. So really free plus. You can even use the plus if your opponent has no rearguards, just by counterblasting 1, Soul Blast 1, and draw a card. That's pretty much what the effect turns into when your opponent doesn't have a board and you ride to grade 2. The other rearguard skill that it has is when it attacks the Vanguard, if the number of your rearguards is greater than your opponent's, then this unit gets plus 3,000 power. So really, really useful for being able to hit force, being able to hit good numbers with Airmo on force and protect, and just kind of get the job done as well. Then we have 4 Dragon Knight Nahalem. Pretty basic card. When it's placed on rearguard circle, counterblast 1, choose one of your opponent's rearguards in the back row, snipe it, basically retire it, and this unit gets plus 5,000 power. So I do like how most of the Kagero cards get power. because, you know, you're blowing up cards, but you also need to still be able to hit your opponent's Vanguard. So they're doing a really good job of including that in the deck, or in the skills, having power. Then we have 4 of our new grade 2, which is 4 Nouvelle Critic Dragon. I really like this card because it really does put pressure on your opponent. Your opponent almost never wants to let this hit for whatever reason. Like, sure, you're going to get a Nouvelle Vague. Like, that card is not that great, in my opinion. So if you need to let this card hit, like, I wouldn't go super out of the way to block it, but a lot of people do go super out of their way to block it. But its skill is when it's on the Vanguard circle, when its attack hits a Vanguard, you can just get a free Nouvelle Vague to your hand from your deck and then shuffle. So pretty good, but also if it's attacking for like 33k and you're like 10k, like, I wouldn't go super out of my way to block it. Then we have 4 Flame of Hope Airmo. So Flame of Hope Airmo has 2 Rearguard skills starting off our grade 1 lineup. It has a continuous Rearguard ability that says during the battle that it boosted, this unit gets plus 3000 power. So when it's boosting is actually 11k booster, which works great when synergizing with Nahalem or Berserk Dragon to hit those numbers. And then also, your secondary effect is when your opponent's Rearguard is retired during your turn, you can retire this unit, draw a card, and countercharge 1. So a lot of times, you do use this skill when you are using your retiring skills from your other cards like Nahalem, Bar, Berserk Dragon, Waterfall. Like, you're using this skill to counteract like the cost of those and draw a card and countercharge. But however, you can attack your opponent's Rearguard during the battle phase, and then if your opponent lets their Rearguard go, or they guard it and you break their shield or something like that, and then the Rearguard still dies, then it still, like, Airmo can still go off. So you can attack with an Airmo column, it'll be boosted, like 11k boost. So like, let's say that you have a Nouvelle Critic and they have a grade 2 that's, you know, 8k or something like that. Then you attack into it with Nouvelle Critic, boosted by Airmo, it's 21. Let's say that it's too big, they don't want to guard that, so they let it go. Then you can retire Airmo, draw a card, and countercharge. So pretty good, especially when you know that you need to attack Rearguards to survive because you didn't check any triggers or something like that, and you know that you don't want to push them to a certain damage so that they won't be able to mess you up. Then we have 4 Lizard Soldier Ralpia. I personally really like Ralpia as a card. It does allow you to just place it on the Rearguard circle and then place any other retire card, and then suddenly this card can hit any Vanguard, which is pretty cool because it turns into 13 with the first time you use the skill, but it can stack as well. So, you know, when you're playing against Force and you use it twice, like, it is 18, which is actually a number on Force, and Protect for that matter, and Excel. But this ability, or this unit's skill, is Vanguard Rearguard Circle. When your opponent's Rearguard is retired during your turn, this unit gets plus 5,000 power until the end of the turn. Also, it can be a really good booster for Waterfall. If it's behind Waterfall, you ride Waterfall, you blow up a card. This card becomes a 13k booster for the already big Waterfall. Moving on, we have 3 Embodiment of Armor Bar. Embodiment of Armor Bar has a Rearguard skill that says when placed, Counterblast 1, Soul Blast 1. Choose one of your opponent's grade 2 or less cards in the same column as this unit, retire it, and then if the number of Rearguards is greater than your opponent's that we have, then this unit gets plus 5,000 shield. So I pretty much only use it when I can get the full bonus out of it, but it's really up to you guys and like what they have on the field and how important it is for you to blow it up, etc. Then our last grade 1 that we talked about it a little bit earlier in the deck profile. It is 2 Noveller Roman Dragon. So what this card does is when it's placed, you can reveal a Dragonic Nouvelle Vague from your hand, and then search your deck for an Overlord, and put the Nouvelle back to your deck and shuffle. So basically, when you start out your hand with like a 1, 2, and a 1, let's say that the second one is Novellerman, and a Nouvelle Vague, and a trigger. Like, you don't have a grade 3, so when you ride a grade 1, you can actually place Noveller Roman to switch this out for the 1 Overlord in our deck. And you kind of want to do it as early as possible because we do run 1 Overlord. So if you need to do the skill, I wouldn't wait till you're on turn 2, just because you might damage check your Overlord and then you'll be like, oh, like, I can't get to grade 3. So most of the time it's fine. Like, this has never screwed me over just running 1 Overlord, for those of you who are wondering. But, you know, anything can happen. It is Vanguard, and it is standard as well. But our starter is Lizard Runner Unduk, same starter as before. Lets you draw a card. And then we ran 6 crit, 6 draw, and 4 heal. It was really the only thing that I could do to keep up with, like, how much advantage this deck does not get, if that makes sense. Especially when you go to Nouvelle, like I would rather when I get that one draw check a draw trigger than a crit, because I need to like get some things in my hand to survive. Like the 15k base power does help a lot as well, but you know, sometimes it's just not enough. But we do run something of note is we do run 4 of our Sentinel triggers, which is our Vanguard Bari. All the rest of them are just the regular V series triggers of their specific kind. But with that being said, we are done with the deck profile portion of the video. So let's get right into the games here. You guys are gonna see how sad it made me. And it like the only way that it really doesn't make you sad is if you're playing against like Excel and you know you wipe their whole board and then you're happy because they can't do anything to you to possibly come back because they just lost like 7 units in a board wipe. So otherwise than that though, like it never really affects people that much, but you know, it is what it is. First game here, we're playing against OTT. OTT player rides, we ride air mode, we attack, we check the trigger. And then our opponent rides Promise Daughter, uses Luckbird to Soul Blast 2 draw, and then checks a heal. So pretty good start for him. I ride Berserk Dragon, and I also get 2 Nouvelle critics. So he does let the first Nouvelle critic hit. I hit a draw trigger as well, which is awesome. And then he blocks my last attack. So then he attacks with CEO. He gets a crit and a draw. So I was like, wow, so lucky. But then I also get a draw, so it's like whatever. And then I get a heal as well, healing down. Then I ride Waterfall. Normally I would retire a card, but his Promise Daughters, which are the only cards I can retire, said that they can't be retired by skills. So I do check 2 cards, he no guards, and then I check a critical trigger, dealing 2 damage to him. And then I attack for 28. He does guard the 28. Then he attacks me for 27. I guard with a heal trigger and a 5 for a 2 to pass. He does check a crit, putting it all on the rear guard circle. And then he attacks with a crit. I guard with 3 cards. He attacks my rear guard. And then I ride Nouvelle because I do want to be a 15k base. So, you know, that's cool. But then I attack for 23. Then I attack with Vanguard. I didn't use the skill this turn, so I do get Twin Drive, getting a draw trigger. And then I attack with my final column, and he guards it. He has to ride CEO Amaterasu because he doesn't have another Imperial Daughter, so that's actually really good for me. And then we took his rear guard, and then his other rear guard we just blocked with a 10. We re-ride Nouvelle, and then we blow up his field with Nouvelle. Something to note is that Ralpia does work very well with Nouvelle. Like, you can make really big columns because you're blowing up so many units. So I am forcing him like a little bit back into the wall with the strategy that I'm currently doing. And he decided to replace his whole field so that he can do the deer play, which I didn't really think was smart, but I guess he didn't really know that I had 2 PGs in my hand. So he adds 10k to his board, he tags Vanguard, I PG, he puts the crit to one side, and then he checks an Imperial Daughter. One side I just guard normal, and then the other side I PG. So I use Nouvelle to make him blow up 4 units. My other rear guard column, like this column with Ralpia, gets plus 20k. So, and then Nouvelle itself gets 20k, he can't heal. So there's literally like no way that he can win because his triggers are nullified. So that was a pretty good game, showcasing that against, like, you know, maybe against Protect. Now, I can't say really the same because maybe he got unlucky. He didn't have that Imperial Daughter, like I said, that second Imperial Daughter to ride. So a lot of times the OTT player does have that, and I don't know how the game would have went if that was the case. But game 2, we're playing in Shadow Paladin. We start with our hand, we ride, he rides, attacks me, damage, critical trigger, ride Berserk, and then we draw a card, we switch out, we use Novellerman to switch out our Nouvelle Vague with the Overlord. Like I was saying before, we didn't we had a grade 3 in our hand, but we don't want to ride it we like want to ride Waterfall second, so it's better to ride Overlord first. So we actually just attack, and then we use the skill to drop 2 cards. We do like get a Waterfall, which is pretty awesome. Our opponent attacks us with Dark Dictator, checks no triggers, so we take a damage, then we take another damage, and then we guard we take another damage because his was bigger than we thought. So we, you know, use Waterfall. He no guards Waterfall, which if I could have crit him, like I could have just won the game right there. He does damage check a crit, and I attack his Vanguard anyways. He intercepts, and then he rides Phantom Blaster. He uses the skill to make me retire 2, and then he makes me deal a damage. So I actually get a heal, which is good for me because I'm able to put down a heal to guard his Vanguard for a 2 to pass. He attacks my Vanguard, and then I take the last attack as well. So I ride Waterfall again, just putting Waterfall skill, you know, gift to Vanguard. So he guards for me for a 1 to pass. I don't get it actually, so I just have to attack his rear guard. But he can't really recover as well as he'd like. But I was being really dumb here, where I lost the game that I should have won because I 2 to pass his Vanguard. When he attacked me with 13, I put down a heal trigger to 2 to pass because I thought that would be efficient. But in all honesty, I had like 3 PGs in my hand. Like, I could have just PG'd Vanguard and then blocked the rear guards with however much necessary, and then just won the game like automatically just by riding Nouvelle and using the skill and playing down my Nouvelle critic and my Airmo, whatever. But you know, you win some, you lose some. You're stupid sometimes, you're smart sometimes, if you're me. So yeah, I guess it wouldn't even be considered stupid, it's just greedy. But I really didn't think that he was going to hit the double trigger, so I just banked on it. Probably in a tournament I would have done that a little differently, but you know, when playtesting I tried to go with the most optimal thing guarding possible for me, and that at the time was the most optimal, you know, thing for me to do. So we're playing against Murakumo in our 3rd game. He rides and attacks us for 7, which kind of pissed me off that I didn't get a trigger because I really wanted to use Berserk to draw a card, but I do ride up anyways, get a draw trigger, and get into Dragonic Waterfall, which is cool. And then we also, he let Vague hit, so we also got Vague, like the rearguard Vague. So then we ride Waterfall, we use Nahalem to blow up one of his cards, and then we call Raupia and we call Bar, effectively blowing up his whole field. We attack him for 15, so this is a really good field setup right now. And then I told him that he needed more to block, so he does block, and he has a bunch of grade 3s in his hand, as you guys can see. So we do check a heal trigger, putting power to rearguard, and then he checks a draw trigger, drawing a card, and then he does take our grade 2 attack again, so we do check, or we do search for another Nouvelle Vague. He uses the skill of Mandala Lord, Counterboss 1, Soul Blast 1 to call a copy, and then he calls 2 of the Musashi, so I guess he just hasn't seen freaking Zanbaku, which is unfortunate for him. We do hit a draw trigger, and we're just taking a bunch of damage just because we can. And then we ride Nouvelle, retiring one of his cards. We attack for 18. He does guard, and then we attack with Waterfall with 56 with a crit, no Sentinels. He tries the PG. I tell him that he can't use Sentinels. And then he gets the cards back from his deck. I have no idea why he's doing it the way that he's doing it, but he does no guard. And then he's forced to take 2 damage, and neither of them are heal triggers, so we just win the game. And that's like an example of how Waterfall can just win you the game just by being Waterfall. Like, for example, next turn, we probably would have lived just because of our hand, and then, you know, we would have just rode Nouvelle Vague and been able to, like, pop his whole board, which really hurts when you're playing Excel. So I don't think that he would have won that game anyways, but, you know, the fact that we did have the second Waterfall on deck did really help as well. So moving into game 4, I believe, the last and final game for today's video. We are actually playing into the new Angel Feather deck, which is busted, by the way, if you guys haven't played against it or seen it played. It's just so stupid in so many ways. But my opponent rides 9k, attacks me, gets a crit. I get a draw trigger, pretty good. Then we use Berserk, we attack, and then we attack, get a crit. Our opponent takes 2 damage, no trigger, pretty nice. And then is forced to guard with a 15k. Attacks our rearguard for 12. We do 2 to pass it because we want that rearguard. We draw into Waterfall, which is pretty cool. And then we attack, but we don't get hit any triggers, which is not cool because we just have to pass turn while he does get a trigger. He rides Metatron and heals off of damage. Uses a damage swap to put Zorakio in the damage zone. And then he does a damage to himself and gets a heal trigger, so he is able to heal down the damage, which was so stupid. But then I guard his last attack. I ride Nouvelle Vague, so we're pretty much going to be Nouvelle Vague for the rest of the game. just using that 15k base to try to, you know, pressure our opponent a little more. He does ride another Metatron, healing off another damage, dealing another damage to himself, putting a trigger back, and then he attacks for 15, or he attacks with Vanguard for 27. I know guard both the attacks. I re-ride Vague just to get another force marker and to set up for when I feel like using Vague's skill is necessary. So we attack for 33, he PGs. We attack for 38, and we do hit a heal trigger. So we are healing off the damage. Unfortunately, he does hit a draw, and he draws into Metatron off that, like, too. So that was really broken. But he deals the damage to himself, and he damages Metatron, which is insane. He uses the damage swap to get Metatron to his hand. And then he attacks for 17, then 35. I no guard the 35. He hits no triggers. And then his rear guard attacks my rear guard because he was trying not to put me to 5 so I don't wipe his board. Which I kind of understand. But at the same time, it's like, whatever, you know. Because he doesn't have the mobile hospital on his field. So that should be the unit that he is worried about protecting, in my opinion. So here my opponent just kind of like left for no reason. He came back eventually. Like, this match is sped up, like, time-wise. So it took him, like, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes to come back. And it was, like I said, it was really late when I was recording these games last night. So it was probably, like, 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning. So I was actually falling asleep. And that's why he thought that I was gone now. So, you know, I fell asleep and then I woke up suddenly and, like, he just happened to still be in the match. So then we continue the match from here. I attack him for 38, and then I attack him for 38, and then I attack him for 28. He guards all that. Then he heals off the damage with another Metatron. Like, if he hadn't healed off all this damage for so many turns in a row, I'm pretty sure I would have been able to, like, do something that would eventually hurt him bad. But yeah, he did consistently get off the heal, like, all these times. So he does check a crit here as well. Putting the crit to Zera, but the power to rearguard. Like, I don't know why he did that. Like, if he was going to go all in, he should have just went all in. But he does 2 to pass me and get past me, but he didn't put the crit on Vanguard. So, but then we use Nouvelle's skill to make him retire field. And then we attack for 48. I didn't see him take the damage, so then we continue attack for 73. He protect markers using a protect marker, and then we attack for 28. So then our opponent uses a skill to damage swap, getting the mobile hospital, dealing a damage to himself. It is a heal, so he does add power to his back row because I'm guessing that he's, yeah, planning on riding Zerakiel basically. But yeah, so he uses the skill to get a card from his drop zone. He gets Zerakiel, which is pretty busted. He attacks for 36, and honestly, I think about it, and I won't be able to guard Feather Palace, which will have a crit. He does check double draw triggers, so my only chance was to 6 damage heal, and then I don't think that we 6 damage healed. I think I fell asleep here, which was like, you know, because it was taking so long for him to do his plays, but I do have 2 heals in the drop and 2 in my hand, so we did not heal that anyways. But yeah, that ends up being the FutureFight Vanguard video for Nouvelle. I honestly would give this deck like a 2 out of 10. That's like, that might just be me being salty, but like, it's not even higher than a 5 out of 10, seriously. I don't like this deck at all. I think that if you're going to play Kagero, you should just try to play the straight waterfall version with Dragonic Overlord, because I almost believe that Nouvelle Vegas like not worth it. But that's my personal opinion on it. You guys can build whatever you want. Let me know what you think down in the description below. Is this your favorite deck? Do you have any secret deck techs or secret strategies that you think makes this deck better, or any advice? Please leave it down below so that other people can see it as well when they are deck building. And with that being said, like I said before at the very beginning of the video, if you haven't subscribed already, be sure to subscribe. Check out our sponsor, Dabbers. And this has been Josh from Cardfight Empire, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace, guys.